The rain hammered against the windows of our little cottage in the Cotswolds, mirroring the storm raging inside me. For 20 years, our life with my wife, Bronwyn, had been a tapestry woven with shared dreams, whispered secrets, and the comfortable rhythm of everyday life. Alaric, a landscape artist, found solace in the rolling hills and ancient woodlands, translating their beauty onto canvas. Bronwyn, a successful veterinarian, dedicated her life to healing animals, her compassion a constant source of admiration for me. We were, or so I believed, a perfect match. The first tremor in our seemingly solid foundation came subtly, like a hairline crack in a priceless vase. It started with Bronwyn's increased hours at the clinic. A new emergency case, Alaric, she'd say, her eyes averted, her voice a little too bright. A complicated surgery, darling, I'll be late. I never questioned her, trusting her dedication implicitly. I'd heat up leftovers, read a book by the fire, and wait for her return, the scent of antiseptic clinging to her clothes, a familiar comfort. But then came the late-night phone calls, hushed whispers in the hallway, and the way she'd clutch her phone protectively when I entered the room. I dismissed it as stress, the pressures of her demanding job weighing her down. I tried to be supportive, offering massages, drawing her relaxing baths, and planning weekend getaways to the coast. But she remained distant, preoccupied, her smile no longer reaching her eyes. The unease grew, a knot tightening in my stomach. I started noticing things I'd previously overlooked. The new perfume, subtly floral and unfamiliar, the expensive silk scarf I hadn't bought her, the way she flinched when I touched her. Doubt, like an insidious weed, began to sprout in my mind, poisoning my peace. I loved Bronwyn with every fiber of my being, but a chilling premonition told me something was terribly wrong. One Tuesday, Bronwyn told me she had to attend a veterinary conference in Bristol. "It's important, Alaric," she said, her voice pleading. "I need to network, keep up with the latest advancements." I kissed her goodbye, a hollow ache in my chest as I watched her drive away. I told myself I was being paranoid, that my anxieties were unfounded. But the seed of suspicion had been planted, and it was taking root. That evening I found myself unable to paint. The vibrant colors I usually loved seemed dull, lifeless. The landscape before me felt alien, devoid of the joy it usually inspired. Restless, I decided to surprise Bronwyn. I knew she'd be tired after the conference, so I thought I'd book a room at a nice hotel in Bristol, order room service, and treat her to a relaxing evening. It was a spontaneous gesture, born out of a desperate need to reconnect with the woman I loved. I called the conference center, only to be told that Bronwyn wasn't registered. My blood ran cold. "Are you sure?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Perhaps there's been a mistake." The receptionist checked again. "No, sir. There's no one by that name attending this week." The world tilted on its axis. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of fear and disbelief. Where was she? What was she doing? The questions swirled in my mind, a vortex of confusion and dread. I tried calling her, but her phone went straight to voicemail. "Bronwyn, it's me," I said, my voice cracking. "Please call me. I need to know you're okay." Driven by a desperate need for answers, I decided to drive to Bristol. The rain intensified, blurring the road ahead, mirroring the turmoil within me. The journey was a blur of flashing headlights and distorted reflections, my mind racing with possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. I arrived in Bristol late, the city slicked with rain, the neon lights casting an eerie glow. I started driving around, aimlessly searching, my eyes scanning every street, every hotel, every restaurant. I had no idea where to look, but I couldn't bear the thought of going home without knowing the truth. Around 11 p.m., I found myself driving past a small, discreet hotel on the outskirts of the city. Something about it caught my eye, a nagging intuition that I couldn't ignore. I parked the car and walked inside, the lobby hushed and dimly lit. "Can I help you, sir?" the receptionist asked, her voice polite but indifferent. "I'm looking for my wife," I said, my voice hoarse. "She's supposed to be at a veterinary conference, but I can't reach her." I gave her Bronwyn's name and a description. The receptionist typed something into the computer, her expression unchanging. "We have a guest registered under that name," she said, her voice flat. "Room 204, my breath caught in my throat. Room 204. It was real then. My worst fears were confirmed. I felt a surge of nausea, a wave of dizziness washing over me. I gripped the counter, trying to steady myself. "Is everything all right, sir?" the receptionist asked, her eyes narrowing with concern. "I need to go up there," I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. The receptionist hesitated. "I'm not sure that's allowed, sir. Please," I begged, my voice filled with desperation. "I need to know," she sighed, relenting. "All right, sir, but please be discreet." I took the elevator to the second floor, my legs feeling like lead. The hallway was silent, the only sound the muffled hum of the air conditioning. I walked towards room 204, my heart pounding in my chest, each step heavier than the last. I stood outside the door, my hand trembling as I reached for the handle. I hesitated, a part of me wanting to turn back, to preserve the illusion, to cling to the hope that I was wrong. But I knew I couldn't. I had to know the truth, no matter how painful. I took a deep breath and pushed the door open. The scene that greeted me was like a punch to the gut, a searing image that would forever be etched into my memory. Bronwyn was in bed, naked, entangled in the arms of another man. The man was Caelan, our neighbor, a smug, arrogant estate agent who had always made thinly veiled passes at Bronwyn. Time seemed to stand still. The world narrowed to that single, devastating image. Bronwyn's eyes widened in horror, her face contorted with guilt and shame. Caelan smirked, a look of triumph on his face. "Alaric," Bronwyn whispered, her voice trembling. "It's not what you think, not what I think." I roared, my voice filled with rage and pain. "I'm standing here looking at you in bed with another man. What else could it be?" Caelan sat up, nonchalantly lighting a cigarette. "Relax, Alaric," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. "It's just a bit of fun." Bronwyn needed a little excitement in her life. I lunged at him, grabbing him by the throat. "You bastard!" I screamed, my fingers tightening around his neck. "I'll kill you!" Bronwyn screamed, pulling me off him. "Alaric, stop! You're hurting him!" I shoved her away, disgusted. "Don't touch me!" I yelled. "You're both disgusting." I stumbled out of the room, my vision blurred with tears and rage. I ran through the hallway, down the stairs, and out into the rain-soaked street. I didn't know where I was going, but I had to get away, to escape the suffocating pain that was consuming me. I drove aimlessly for hours, the rain lashing against the windshield, the headlights cutting through the darkness. I was numb, hollowed out, the life I had known shattered into a million pieces. The woman I loved, the woman I had trusted, had betrayed me in the most brutal way imaginable. When I finally returned home, the cottage felt alien, no longer a sanctuary but a prison filled with painful memories. I packed a bag, throwing in a few clothes, my art supplies, and a framed photograph of my parents. I left Bronwyn a note. "I am leaving. Don't try to find me." I drove to the coast, to a small, isolated village I had visited as a child. I rented a tiny cottage overlooking the sea, the sound of the waves a constant, soothing presence. I spent my days painting, trying to capture the raw beauty of the landscape, to find solace in the natural world. The pain was still there, a dull ache in my heart, but slowly, gradually, it began to subside. Weeks turned into months. I immersed myself in my art, finding a new sense of purpose, a new appreciation for the simple things in life. I made friends with the locals, fishermen and artists who shared my love of the sea. I started to heal, to rebuild my life piece by piece. One day I received a letter. It was from Bronwyn. She begged me to forgive her, to come back. She said she had made a terrible mistake, that she loved me, that she couldn't live without me. I read the letter, my heart aching with a mixture of sadness and anger. I thought about the years we had spent together, the dreams we had shared, the love we had once felt. But the image of her in bed with Caelan was still burned into my mind, a constant reminder of her betrayal. I knew I could never forgive her, never trust her again. The bond was broken, the trust shattered beyond repair. I wrote her a short, simple reply. "It's too late, Bronwyn. I can't." I mailed the letter and watched it disappear into the postbox, a final farewell to the life we had once shared. I continued to paint, to live, to heal. The scars of betrayal would always be there, but they no longer defined me. I had survived, I had found a new life, a new sense of peace. And that, I realized, was the greatest revenge of all. Years later, I heard through a mutual acquaintance that Bronwyn had married Caelan. Their happiness, however, was short-lived. Caelan, it turned out, was a serial philanderer, and Bronwyn soon found herself on the receiving end of his infidelity. The irony was not lost on me. She had sought excitement and novelty, only to find herself trapped in a cycle of betrayal and heartbreak. I never remarried. I found contentment in my art, in my friendships, in the quiet solitude of my coastal cottage. I learned that love, like a delicate flower, needs constant nurturing and care, and that betrayal, like a poisonous weed, can destroy even the most beautiful garden. My story is one of heartbreak, betrayal, and ultimately, resilience. It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, we have the strength to rebuild our lives, to find new meaning, and to emerge stronger than before. Never underestimate the power of self-respect and the importance of moving on. You deserve happiness, even after the deepest wounds. Remember that always.